Welcome back, fellow audio enthusiasts. It is I, Jason, your host of 2-Channel Listening. Yes, here we are. I've had quite a few of you reaching out to me going, when am I going to release the video of the $1,500 bookshelf series? Well, that starts today. And furthermore, it is going to be a 3-part series, beginning with the Aperion audio, followed by the monitor audio Silver 7Gs, and the dark horse here, the German Heco Revolution 3 speakers. Now, I just want to start off by saying that I am not going to completely go into the song selections and how each of the 3 speakers sounded against each other until I can make it through all 3 parts to explain the internal workings, the different philosophies of how these 3 speakers are built, because there's quite a large difference, even though only $150 separates these 3 speakers. So I like to continue to work within the budget ramifications, the midpoint for me as a consumer. I've always had a fascination with finding the sweet spot within that $1,500 price category. And, during COVID, I did the same thing with the integrated amplifiers when I did Peachtree and Name and Cyrus Audio and even Unison Research. So, $1,500, generally, that's like that point where you're getting as much as you can at $1,500, or you have to really start jumping up to those other echelons. There's larger jumps for return on investment. So without further ado, let's talk about the least talked about brand I think that I've reviewed since I've started this channel. Now, when it comes to bookshelf speakers, everybody knows, even if you're brand new to this, everybody knows a KEF LS50. There are way more than 50 different videos giving you all the information you're ever going to want to know about the different iterations of a KEF LS50 versus this versus that. However, I always choose to go down the less traveled path. I like to find speakers that people aren't talking about, speakers that they haven't seen a whole lot, including the brands themselves. Monitor audio, probably I could arguably say it's one of those brands that's up there with KEF, if not one of the second best selling bookshelf speakers out there between the bronze and the silver line. In its 7th generation, which this is the Silver 7G, 7 generations of the silver bookshelf speaker from Monitor Audio. That is the obvious mainstream choice here, the one that probably has the most cost-conscientious design of these 3 speakers, though there's some arguments that could be made for this Heco here. Aperion Audio, direct to consumer, is a Pacific Northwest company. It's been making speakers since the 1990s, making components since the 1990s, and they do not have widespread distribution in the United States. You go directly to their website and you get a 45-day or 60-day in-home trial, and you're basically leaving out the middleman. So in essence, what that's supposed to mean is you're supposed to get a higher quality product at a lower price versus its nearest competition. Is that always the case? Is direct to consumer products always going to give you the best bang for the buck? Now, unfortunately, I know about a couple of companies that stopped their distributorship, pulled their products back, and decided to go in-house, and they maintain their high margins. They maintain those retail costs. That is not the case with Aperion. They've always been direct to consumers for as long as I know. They've been gracious enough to let me use this in-home audition of the Verus 3 Concert V8B bookshelf speaker, along with their brand new amplifier line, the E2, the energy line of home theater amplifiers that can also be used in a budget 2-channel hi-fi system. But I am focusing on this V8B bookshelf speaker right before me, the top model within what Aperion Audio has. So they have the Novus line, they have their home theater line, and they have the Verus line. This is their most expensive, the highest level of bookshelf speaker that they offer. And again, at $1,449, that's a very attractive entry point. Now, let's get to it, shall we? Let's talk about the execution in the design. Let's talk about what you're getting for $1,450 here. Now, what you can't see, and this is a very large bookshelf speaker. As a matter of fact, here's how it compares to my Harbeth Compact 7, which the Harbeth Compact 7 is a little bit taller, but to give you some context, the Harbeth Compact 7, while that's a bigger bookshelf speaker, it's 29 pounds. This thing is 28 pounds. The Monitor Audio, even though this is an 8-inch woofer, is 21 pounds. This is 22.5 pounds with a nice big Barry Bonds and Mark McGuire asterisk next to it, which I'll talk about later. So you've got this 28-pound speaker, and let me tell you, here's what already sets it apart with that direct-to-consumer money savings, higher quality to you. This cabinet is built with HDF high-density fiberboard, not MDF, not MDF. That's right, this is 1-inch thick HDF fiberboard that they use. And let me tell you, in order to get these curved cabinets on the top and on the sides tapered to the back, it takes a lot more pressurization. It takes it's a harder or more difficult process to bend HDF wood into these types of forms. And they are much stiffer. They have better dampening characteristics. Not to mention that HDF is less susceptible to moisture. A lot of high-class kitchen cabinets are made with HDF versus MDF wood. So it's a more expensive product. It's harder to process. And I could tell you that's part of the girth within this speaker. And so already, what a major kudos to Aperion Audio for using an HDF type of wood. The front baffle is 1-inch thick. You have two choices. It's either gloss black or a very beautiful cherry veneer that unfortunately you can't see it through the camera. And I will show some other pictures of when the sunlight hits this cherry. Boy, does it really glow. It's gorgeous from the sides. But as a viewer, as a listener in my position, I couldn't see the sides. So that's kind of an interesting choice to have this big drab gray 1-inch thick baffle in the front. That's just a design choice, and that's how Aperion Audio executes this speaker. But it is a beautiful cherry nevertheless. You have a large 8-inch Kevlar, woven Kevlar long throw woofer in the front, followed by the ASR 1-inch fabric dome tweeter. This is a ferrofluid cooled tweeter, so it can take a beating for a long time. You can throw a lot of wattage at this speaker, and it's going to be able to dissipate heat and operate for many, many years for you. The grills are magnetic, and the grill is quite robust. It has this this honeycomb design, and it just slaps right in there for you. I had to actually use a little bit of a tool to get that in and out, but you could see how easily that slaps into place. I found that there wasn't really a notable difference listening with the grills on or off, so during the bulk of my listening time, I just left the grills in place and looked at this big giant slab of gray in front of me. Now, Around back, it is a rear ported design. You have the 5-way bi-wireable binding posts, and the only two things that all three of these speakers share are the fact that all three of them are bi-wireable and they're bookshelf speakers. The way that they're executed, I could tell you the similarities end there. And as a matter of fact, one more point to just share that the folks at Aperion Audio, they do pay attention to the details. The bane of so many of my conversations, going back to even the fine audio, is these stamped brass jumpers. This is the one from the Heco. I have a similar one from the Monitor Audio speaker. And let me show you something. The cheapest speaker here, or I should say the cheapest priced speaker here, has legitimate cable jumpers with spades. Comes from the factory with these attached on your bi-wireable binding post. Way to go, Aperion Audio, for not overlooking this small detail. So little cost here. You guys get it. You guys don't get it. Shame. All right. I love it. Okay. In typical Aperion Audio fashion, they also give you the choice of having a little bit of a high frequency trim. So most Aperion Audio speakers, the way that their crossovers are designed, you start at a 0 dB placement. With this jumper in place, you can pull the jumper out and move it to the -3 dB, which trims 3 dB off of the high frequencies. And much like the Novus N6Ts that I reviewed a few months ago, I could only listen into Aperion Audio with the jumper in the -3 dB trim for all day listening. There's just something about the way they do the crossovers that for the home theater application that these speakers are designed for, lots of high frequency energy, lots of detail, but when it comes to extended 2-channel listening for hours on end, I would always prefer to listen to these speakers in the -3 dB trim setting. Thank you for having that. Monitor Audio does not have a trim. Actually, Heco does. Heco also allows you to have trim with the high frequencies. Again, something I'll have to talk about when it comes to the track-by-track playback and the differences among these three speakers of how they executed playback. So, getting into this cabinet. Oh boy, I tell you what. You've got plastic beauty rings on the Monitor Audio. So all I had to do was pop out those plastic beauty rings to get to the screws, and I was able to take apart most of the interior of the Monitor Audio for you. The Heco Audio has these dual fasteners on their woofer. Actually, they are very nice fasteners with a very stiff head point, and it made it easy to get the woofer in and out and the tweeter in and out of the Heco. The Aperion, on the other hand, while it is an incredibly clean design, again, it's built with dampening in mind. It has those large rubber surrounds, silicone sealed in place. I only did it with one speaker. I couldn't touch the tweeter, so in order to pull out that woofer, I had to very carefully, painstakingly get at that rubber surround and pull the rubber surround out and affix it with more silicone. Nevertheless, I pulled out this massive 8-inch woofer from the Aperion Audio so that you could see again how well the interior of the speaker is executed. It does have internal bracing. Again, I show you that it's 1 inch thick. And I would say that they also went the extra route of having an even more denser styrofoam internal dampening material that is stapled to the sidewalls of this speaker. Speaking of cheesy damping material, this thin polyfill sheet is all you get within the Heco speaker. One per side and one little tiny one in the top. No bracing in there, and this is it. This is all you get, which I'll have lots to say when it comes to the listening tests with these speakers, and the fact that for this to even stay here among these two, I had to personally modify it. Otherwise, it was going to get kicked out. And it's the more expensive speaker of these three. Okay. The crossover. It is a two-board dual board design. A little bit of extra because it does have that trim capability. It is I would say, again, for $1,450, it is a good mix of material. You have some very nice poly caps in there. You have a couple of nice ceramic resistors, including that one large green one. That is not the cheapest of parts. And you have some decent, all those small air coil conductors. There are a couple of sandcast caps in there, which is just, when you talk about the price range, you're just never going to get away from sandcast caps on these types of speakers at those prices. Nevertheless, I still commend them. The rest of the crossover is good quality parts, nice poly caps. I took my 30-pound magnet, moved it all over everything. There's no ferrous material within the binding post, no ferrous material at the crossover itself, other than the fasteners to the back of the cabinet. So again, other than those screws and the fasteners, well executed crossover, no ferrous materials, good quality parts in the crossover for this speaker. Okay. I've talked about the execution, I've talked about the build quality, I've talked about the stoutness of it. I will give you this before moving on to the other two speakers in the next videos. I will just say this right off the bat. I have my Harbeth Compact 7s. I had the VA Mozart Grand SEs, and I had the big Beethoven Baby Grand SEs. The woofer in this 8-inch woofer. Oh, and here's the specs. Very important, sorry. What you will not see is what's not posted. I asked Dallas at Aperion Audio, where's the crossover point? And the woofer is crossed over at 2.8K, the same as the Heco speaker here. Now, having said that, this Kevlar 8-inch woofer is a sweetheart. I make no bones about it. From a bass consistency, from the low frequency, the punch, the articulation, the energy, the slam, just the pulsating noises that could come from this bookshelf speaker, bar none, beats these two, bar none, has more energy and again more slam, really pumps out those low frequency hertz within my room, much better than the Harbeth Compact 7, a speaker that is 3 times the price, more than 3 times the price of the V8B here. As a matter of fact, here's an important point I have to make about Aperion Audio and the fact that I'm coming off of the heels of reviewing their floor stander, the Novus N6T speakers that are $1,650, $200 more than this bookshelf speakers. I'm glad that I've had time with this because I'm going to say this, and forgive me Aperion Audio, it's how much I like this speaker and how much I think you guys knocked it out of the park with the V8B. For $200 less, bar none, I would go with this speaker. Bar none, this is a better speaker than the Novus 6T floor standing. Bar none, from a bass energy, from how cleanly it plays, for how little you hear the box. This is the least boxy speaker that I have heard in even the sub $3,000 range. You guys executed this design very well. You're not hearing energy smearing. There are a couple of dance songs, and I say dance songs, that I pumped up to 97 dB in this room, and the bass it crushed it. This speaker crushes the bass region. So impressed with how much, I mean, you do not need a subwoofer with these speakers. Again, my room is just smaller than a 12 by 12, and I have 10-foot ceilings. I've got quite a bit of acoustical treatment, and it really let me hear those dance bass lines with this speaker, and it just executed them so well at very high levels, played them so cleanly, and you did a great job with the cabinet design to not hear that smearing, to not hear, you know, high frequency tone like I did with this guy and specifically. And, you know, fantastic job. I'm going to wait to talk about, again, the song by song playback after I've gone through these, because I have to talk about what I did to modify this speaker so that it could even compete with the monitor audio and the Aperion audio. Look for those. I will have those videos out very soon. I know you're going to be a little upset that I won't talk about just straight, is it the winner? Cool your jets. Did a little bit of DIY here with one of these, and it makes a difference. When you invest $75 into a cheap speaker, not unlike some of the things that Danny at GR Research does, it can make a serious impact. And when you're dealing with this kind of stuff, you've got compromises everywhere, and you can choose to tailor where you want to put little bits of money to deal with those compromises. And I will say I was pretty impressed with the monitor audio when I discuss it in its video compared to the Aperion audio, because this is a $1,495 speaker in the US. Very closely matched, very competitively priced, and different design philosophy and different quirks that I will have to address in that video. Until then, sorry to tease you so much, but if you're a bass head, I could say you can jump ahead right there, and for $1,450, I haven't heard better. I haven't heard better bass from a $1,500 speaker. And I even say that about the BMRs, which are now $1,900 in the configuration that I bought them. So there's that. Until next time, thank you for joining me. Monitor audio next.